So let's talk about the natural end. Now, as we mentioned, whenever you have a contract that is reaching the expiration date, the validity term and date, then you have this situation where the renewal is improbable. So you want to go ahead and perform the lease end and, of course, the close. We do assume that the periodic postings are performed in every period. So once you get to the expiration date, you can go ahead and trigger the lease end. We included here some ways in which you can look for this type of contracts, and we do have some reports available in the application. In our latest version, you all know we have the contract expiration report that allows you to plan ahead and make sure which contract are reaching their likely to expire date, so you can coordinate with other departments whether a renewal is probable or not. We also have the data quality integrity report that you can run at activation group level, and you can use in a similar fashion with the contract expiration report. You can use it as a planning tool, or to determine whether you want to go ahead and close those contracts because they're expired. In addition to that, assuming that all the periodic postings are up to date, you can also make use of the lease end action that is available within the batch management feature for the workflow mass transition. And the system will be able to show you what are the contracts that are supposed to have a lease end because they're expired and all their transactions are posted. And I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes once we get to the demonstration part. So the important part here is that all the periodic postings are posted. And once you do that, you will see, and most of you are aware, and you know that once everything is posted, the lease end bottle becomes dark blue from the light blue before, so you can go ahead and perform the lease end. Once you enter the end date for the unit, you can, of course, perform the close. And our recommendation is that you always trigger the close immediately after the lease end, unless there is some other process that you have internally. But our recommendation is such because you want to avoid having discrepancies between your posted transaction and your disclosure reports. Immediately after you perform the close, the asset retirement will be recognized as well as a transaction. Of course, for this type of scenario where you have a natural end, the right of use asset is completely depreciated. So the retirement is pretty much a reversal of the gross book value and the accumulated depreciation recognized. And for natural lease end, the assumption is that there's no balance remaining because you posted everything, all the payments, all the accruals. So then at the end, there won't be any balance for the liability accounts. So with that, we are going to jump right ahead into the application. I hope that everybody is still seeing my screen.
Yeah, Kata, go ahead.
Perfect. So I have here a contract, and you can see the base rent is running from the 1st of January 2021, and the assumed end date for the contract is February 2023. At the same time, all the postings are done, and I'm just going to show it to you so you can understand. So I'm just going to select all the years here. So one of the assumptions for some of the recommendation is made is that the periodic posting transactions are always posted on time. So as you get to considering whether you need to apply the lease end on expired contract, you are in this situation. The postings are made up to date. So you can see here all the available periodic posting are posted. We are in March, so We had all the posting made in February, and we can decide, well, I want to listen this contract at the beginning of March. I have dual reporting for this contract, so I can show you that the postings are made for both standards. So we can go ahead and perform the listen. But at the same time, I wanted to mention and I wanted to show you, you do have the option of looking for expired contract like this one here. And you can make use of from the additional reports of the contract expiration report. As I mentioned, the way to look at this type of report is that you select, you plan ahead and you select, for example, from the end of December 2022, and you select the next 6 months to see how many contracts are likely to expire in that period. You might want to pinpoint to a specific company depending how your user profiles are set. Sorry. Of course, you will need to target a specific standard, and with that in mind, and I have some reports already pulled out here. So this is the contract expiration report specifically for the details that I just showed you. And in here, you can make use of the likely expiration date. You can check how many contracts are about to expire in the 6 months following the exportation of the report, and you can plan ahead. You already have an idea that every month you will have some contracts that are due to expire. So once you do that, you can also make use of the data quality integrity report, where you have more details than in the expiration report. In here, you mainly have the details about the dates, whether you have an extension, whether you have a termination option or a purchase option. As I highlighted here, I'm sorry, my voice is fading away. it's the it's the flu season, but we're getting by. All right. In addition to that, we have the data quality integrity report, as I was saying, also part of the additional report. You have it here. Very important. You want to pull out the information at activation group level, because you want to take a look at the terms and condition at activation group level, whether they're also present, whether you have um, termination option, whether you have purchase option, and so on. For the data quality integrity report, once again, you can use it as a planning tool, and you can run it from a previous date, or you can run it up to date in order to make sure you capture absolutely everything. Once again, it's best that you target your company, the company that user has access to, so you can check out what is in there. I already run a report, so I can show it to you. But in a similar way to the contract expiration report, you can make use of the end date, and also check the types of terms that you have in there. So the end date is here. So this is the column that you might want to take a look at, and also within the terms.
Tata, we have a question in the
Sure,
chat from
of course.
Alexandra Espinosa.
Okay,
And
sure.
she's saying, is there any report that shows all the right of use asset and end date for all leases? Is there any
So
report that shows all the right of use asset end date for all leases?
the one that we're looking right now, the data quality integrity
Mm-hmm.
report, is showing just that. So you can capture absolutely all the contracts in a particular company or system, for example. Whereas the contract expiration report is more targeting the specific period, as I chose in my example, the next 6 months. So the first 6 months of 2023, the system will be providing us with the contracts that are about to expire.
Okay. Should you
All right.
need any clarification, Alexandra, just write in the chat if you please. Okay, go on, Kata, please.
Thank you. All right. So in addition to the end date that we have here in the data quality integrity report, you can also make a selection by the type of term. So you can look for, and you have here in column AS in my specific report, of course, depending on the details of your configuration, you can have a slightly different display, but you will see the term type, so you can look for purchase options or termination options, for example. And the data quality integrity report, you can also run it by a specific status. So in addition to these two reports that you can use for the expired contract and the ones that reach their natural end, there is another feature that you can use. So within the batch management, within the batches, you have the workflow mass transition. And within the workflow mass transition, so let's put something like expired contracts. In company D111, the one that I'm working into. So in the action, we are choosing list N here. And in the filters, I am going to target the company, a specific company. And the recommendation is that you perform this action after you posted your periodic transaction for the month. So you might want to include this step in your month-end procedure. So at this point, after I made all my selection, all I want to do is generate the item. So I want to see what the system is selecting and telling me that there are some contracts that are ready for the lease end. So once I do that, I can always export the information. I can check. I can make selections. So here we have the batch item. So for this particular company, the system selected 4 contracts, telling me they're ready to perform list and on that. And as you can see, you can always export the list. You can check if ever this is the case. If you want to really apply the list, and of course you can exclude them from your list of batches. It is as easy as that. You can do that also through the Excel file as you export and re-import. You can always check, and we are going to look at this contract. We can see the list and is on in here. And if we check the postings, we are going to make sure that all the postings are done. And it is the case. And we can also check um, in the terms and condition that indeed this contract is expired. So this is a very easy way to follow up with your expired contract, and it allows you to make use of the automation and the mass features that we have available. So now let's go back to one contract that we have expired, and we are going to go through all the steps in the user interface. But I wanted you to show all these options that you can include in your month-end procedures. So let me close some of these extra tabs that I have here, and we are going to come back to our landing page. Okay. So as the transactions are all posted and the listen button is available, I'm just going to click on it. And once I do, the status is changing to listen. At this point, if I want to do other filtering, I can check in the landing page in the action center. Now I have a status to look for. Remember, as long as your contract is expired, but you haven't performed the listen, you cannot perform a filtering in the landing page. It will still be active. There's no particular status for expired contract. But what I showed you with the list and with generating the items will help you identify the contracts correctly, the ones that you want to perform the list. So now that we performed this step, the next step is to set an end date. This is an end date for the unit. It will be the date for the posting of the transaction. However, it will not change the end date of your contract. So let me just retrace one step here. You can see we have the activation date and the end date of the contract. We are here in the definition page of the activation group. And this is exactly based on the terms and conditions entered. Now we need to set up an end date for the unit. And this will be the posting date for the closing. So let's say we want to post the entry in March. We are in March, so let's say we closed February, so we can do that in March. So once I enter the end date for the unit, my close button is also available. So all I need to do now is click on it. The system is going to display the balances for the liability accounts. Of course, here having dual reporting, I have the US GAAP and the IFRS. The three accounts that you see here are the liability accounts, long-term, short-term, and accrued interest. The system is pretty much checking that for the closing, all the balances are set to zero. So if ever there is some roundings, yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Katarina, there was another question.
Of course.
So the question is from
From
Jose.
Regis, it says at each
Yes.
stage, can you precise what are the corresponding postings and BAPI? It says
Sorry,
here.
yeah, what are the BAPI used for the postings?
So, Regis, as we mentioned at the beginning, we will split the topic of the lease end in two, and in today's session we are going to concentrate mainly on the functionality within the application, whereas next time we'll be covering what happens in SAP. I will, however, talk about posting, but so far here there is no posting that has been generated. Only after the close is performed, there will be an entry. I went over when I was presenting in the deck, and I mentioned that the asset retirement is only posted in Nakisa once the closing is performed. So we are precisely at this step here, where once I click on confirm, the close will be processed and we will have the entry.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'm going to post here in the chat what are the different BAPIs that are executed during the close process, just to let you all know. We will get into that in the next session in detail, but for now, I will post an image for you, Regis.
Okay, thank you. Can you also tell us how the balance is calculated?
So Regis here with the closing, the system is pretty much looking at all the remaining balances. With the natural end, there is no balance. Okay.
Okay.
Right. We
Okay.
will. Okay. So remember that with the natural end, all the transactions are posted, the payment, accrual, and depreciation. There is no balance left. So what are we doing is pretty much making sure that every balance is set to zero. And once I'll click confirm, we'll also take a look at the all column schedule as well. Do you have something else in mind for the natural end? You were looking for something else here?
I don't know if it is because of the balance, but sometimes when I close a contract, which naturally close, so without any casualty or termination option, sometimes we have some close ledger postings, and I thought it was because of a balance.
So I believe that in your case was a change of in the mapping of the maybe short-term, long-term, or accrued interest.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah?
okay?
Maybe, yeah.
So when you have a change in the mapping, you also need to transfer those balances. So if you don't perform that at the end, you will have that balance that you need to transfer.
Okay.
But in terms
Okay.
of the functionality, exactly within Nakisa, at the end of the contract that naturally expires, there is no balance left.
Yeah, even from AppB, this is Manjula. Even from AppB, I can say that it's always creates some minimal balances or always a differences when we try to close the
So
contract.
the minimal balances, the roundings, yes, those will be settled in here, especially if you have parallel currency on. So that's the purpose of the closing.
Yeah, but when it comes to a contract, there should not be any gain or loss account hit when we do a natural closing, right?
Definitely, there shouldn't be.
Right.
And in here, what you're seeing is the liability accounts.
Right. So even the resource whomever is complaining before, right? So from AbbVie side, I can say that we do have the similar situation. We always see some balances when we try to close a contract, or end a contract, even if it is a natural close also, it's causing a similar issue.
Okay, so there are two things here. So for a natural end, you shouldn't have any gain or loss. That
Correct.
will only appear in the case of a casualty or in a very specific case for the termination option. However, if you have balances for the liability accounts when you perform a natural end, you need to check whether there was a change in mapping during the life of the contract, specifically for
No,
the
no,
liability accounts.
no, it's a one-time setup, right? Usually we never ever touch the account determination accounting standards, right? It's one of the issue we've been raising it earlier also, and just want to check from other companies also to hear if they have a similar issue.
All right, you can always reach out to us, but I doubt that you have a gain and loss for the natural end. So maybe you can let us know the specific
Two
case
things,
that you
right?
have.
One is liability balances, and second one is gain or loss. And
So
also,
definitely,
yeah,
yes, definitely gain and loss. You shouldn't have it for natural end. If you
okay.
have it, it's something else. So do you have a ticket open for this?
I can forward those tickets to you, Catalina. We have that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And
And
we
And
have had a couple of questions here. How do you transfer the balances if you change the mapping?
so when you change the mapping, and this is similar to any other type of change in GL accounts, you know that when you do that in your ERP, you need to transfer the balances. However, you will need to cover that part on in your ERP. So as long as you perform that, and we do not recommend that you perform that during the life of the contract. So if you do that, you need to make sure that you start fresh with the contract, or with the contracts in that particular company that you're targeting. You will need to perform that transfer manually when you close the
Correct.
contract.
And there's another one here. Do the internal postings need to be posted externally prior to completing the close process?
So
The
the
answer
fact that
is no,
it's
because closing is what does the postings.
um yes, correct. But the fact that it's posted internally or externally, it's based on the type of connection. So
Correct.
the the important part is that you need to post the entries. All right.
And another one for those that have a balance at posting, what is their version and do they have a fiscal year different from the calendar year?
Uh, I don't know. Maybe this is a question for the others that raised.
At L'Oréal, we are on V5.0 P6 on-premise.
Okay. I don't know if from AbbVie you want to mention the version. I believe it's a much recent one.
Yeah, we moved to the latest version. Yeah, so for previous on-premises solutions, for sure, we have multiple issues. Maybe whoever is there in on-premise solution, we felt cloud is much better than on-premises.
All right. So
Okay,
let's choose the
I'm gonna
posting.
park the questions for now, just so you
Okay.
can
So you
complete
can. So
the
we.
topic. Okay.
Thank you so much. All right. So we're performing the closing, and only at this point we have a transaction that's being triggered, and we can check the asset retirement. And for natural land, this is what you'll be looking for. You want to make sure that you have the retirement of the asset, and As I was mentioning in the slides, the right of use asset is completely depreciated, so we're just reversing the values, the balances for gross book value and accumulated depreciation. This is the retirement. And if we check the schedules as well, we are going to see that all the balances are ending up being zero. So I'm going to check all columns, all years. And we are going to check in the last line here. And the important part is that the closing liability is zero. You can also check for short-term, long-term if they're ending up to zero, and they are. And for the net book value, of course, it's zero. You want to make sure that the accumulated depreciation is zero as well, and the gross book value. So all the balances are zero. As I was mentioning, the closing process, what it tries to do is put all the balances to zero. The asset part has its separate step. However, if ever there are some remaining balances on the liability, they will be displayed right into the balance that we've just seen.